Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the South Dakota NRCS State Technical Advisory Committee meeting. And we welcome you to the federal building today. It is a little warm in here, so we have the fans going, but if it's hard to hear, we can certainly turn them down. So hopefully we can keep up with the temperature okay. So we do have a full agenda. So we're going to forego the introductions online and also in the room today, since we've got a full agenda and some conversational things today. Just a few housekeeping things. There's restrooms outside the door to the right and to the left. And then also there's some water and cups on the back table. And those of you who are online joining us, if you have any issue with hearing us or...
It's hard to hear. It says going outside, it's hard to hear.
Oh, okay, well, thank you right away. Okay, all right, well, we'll be on this side then. Okay, so please, do you want to put the chat up also, please, Randy, so we can see that live?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Tate, is this better? My voice doesn't project very well, so I apologize for that. Okay, so we will work on the audio for sure. And like I said, thank you for coming today. Those of you who are online, please feel free to pop your questions in the chat or raise your hand if you have any questions or want to contribute to the conversations today. All right. Any questions or things before we begin? Okay. There are handouts on the table in the back and with the agenda. And with that, I'll welcome you all here, and I'll turn it over for opening remarks with our state conservationist, Tony Sinceri.
Thank you, Colette. All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for making the time to come to the May version of our State Technical Advisory Committee meeting. I do like to start these meetings off with just what is the purpose of the STAC. The STAC is an advisory committee to NRCS and actually other federal agencies, and it's something that is rooted in statute. It's actually right out of the Code of Federal Regulations. Each state technical committee established under the subpart will meet on a regular basis as determined by the state conservationist to provide information, analysis, and recommendations to appropriate officials of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who are charged with implementing and establishing priorities and criteria for natural resource conservation activities and programs under Title 12 of the Food Security Act of 1985, including but not limited to the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, Conservation Reserve Program, Conservation Security Program, Conservation Stewardship Program, Environmental Quality and Incentive Program, Conservation Innovation Grants, Conservation of Private Lands, Grazing, Grassroots Source Water Protection Program, Voluntary Public Access and Habitat Incentive Program, and the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. The members of the State Technical Advisory Committee may also provide input on other natural resource conservation programs and issues, and may be requested by NRCS or other USDA agency heads at the state level as long as they are within the programs authorized by Title 12. So these recommendations also include the criteria to be used in prioritizing program applications, the state-specific application criteria, priority natural resource concerns in the state, emerging natural resource concerns and program needs, conservation practice standards and specifications. So the role of the State Technical Committee is advisory in nature, and the committee will have no implementation or enforcement authority. However, implementing USDA agencies will give strong consideration to the State Technical Committee's recommendations. So the idea behind this committee is to give advice to NRCS again and other USDA agencies that are present, and this is for statewide priorities. So as we have an agenda today, as we're talking through our agenda, if you have any input, if you have any ideas on how NRCS or other USDA agencies could do something different or better, this is a good opportunity for you to voice your opinion. And the agencies present will take that into heavy consideration as we move forward. So this meeting is held on a quarterly basis. And as we move forward with this committee, NRCS is planning on making a few changes. NRCS prides itself on being locally led, and we're going to work on really strengthening that as we move into the future. We are going to be establishing some subcommittees, and there's going to be more information about that as we move forward. And we're going to hold this in the sense where we really want to give more leadership and control of what NRCS is doing back to our local leadership across the state. So there's going to be some opportunities to weigh in and provide additional feedback as we move into the future. I'm going to have some more comments as we move further into the agenda as I give more of a state of the agency. But again, I want to welcome you all to this meeting, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be a part of this.
Okay. All right, so we do have some people who will be joining us. Their schedule didn't allow them to be right here at 10, so we'll adjust accordingly. So I think we have our update with our friend in state government, Bill Smith, and I believe he's online today. So Bill, are you able to join us on camera today, right now? We're jumping forward in the agenda.
Yeah, it's taking a little bit for me to unmute. So, yeah, basically for our department right now, the big things we're going through, we just had a Conservation Commission grant round. That was on April 8th. And if you go to our boards and commissions portal, you can hear the entire meeting, but the thumbnail was being a grant round. We, the commission reviewed and approved 10 grant applications totaling $249,854. Normally our grant rounds are a little smaller, but because we didn't have as many people apply for higher dollar amounts in November, we had a little bigger one. So that was on the conservation side. We do have a call out for loan applications, and those applications are due the end of June for conservation districts. On the watershed protection end of things, we're getting ready to start our field season, and this year's going to be a fairly aggressive field season as far as monitoring goes because of where we're at on the cycle. Some of the things that Alex, some of the like the area meetings that Alex and Jordan usually go to, they probably won't be able to attend. So Paul, Chris, and I will be covering some more of those that they normally attend. And then on the forestry end of things right now, we're in the midst of spring season. So we're starting to get some calls in on drought stress on trees, which is no surprise. I'm sure we'll get a few more calls if we don't get some rain, especially on newer shelter belt plantings, as well as on some other ones. And then as far as insect and diseases go, everyone probably heard about the detection of emerald ash borer we had in Brookings last year. So we're getting a few calls from people who are wanting us to take a look to see if the bug is in new areas. Thus far, we haven't found any detections outside of the current quarantine areas, but if it follows trends from other states, it's a matter of time before we see it in else places. And then last summer, there was a really big surprise up in North Dakota where they found emerald ash borer about 20 miles north of Aberdeen. So, and it was found at a rest area. So any calls or requests we get in, we're taking very seriously at this point. And then the other big thing is we're coming up on the end of our state fiscal year. That once we get into mid-June, the fiscal systems will be shut down, and then we won't be able to process any vouchers till we get back at the end of June 30th. So that's mine, real short and sweet.
Very good, thank you. So I thank you very much, Bill, and I want to remind folks that online that the handouts were dropped into the chat, and hopefully you're able to access those. If not, just drop a note in and the staff can resubmit those to the chat. Okay, so next on our agenda we have Tony again for an NRCS update.
All right, and Bill, thank you again for your update. So just as a state of the agency at this point in the fiscal year, we've had kind of a rocky start this year. We started this last year, or we started at the beginning of this year with roughly 330 staff, and today we're down to about 270. And this is through a lot of the change. We're having some significant realignments. and trying to find more efficiencies as we go through. And there's been a lot of opportunity for staff to take something that's called the DRP, the Deferred Resignation Program, which has really reduced our staff across the state, not just across the state, but across the nation. And this has had some impacts. We're very fortunate in South Dakota that we don't have any offices that we've had to close at this point. We still have services that we're able to provide to farmers across the state. And while there are impacts, we've been able to minimize as many impacts as we possibly can. We still have some rocky road to go through, unfortunately. The agency and the department has been looking at different reorganization plans, and we're still waiting for what that plan ultimately looks like to see what the final impact will end up being on NRCS. So we're still waiting for that. We haven't received what that looks like yet, but that may end up resulting in just kind of how we're functioning within the state. So as we moved into this year, one of the very first things that this administration did is they did cut or stop all use of the Inflation Reduction Act. That was an impact to NRCS. Over the last few years, NRCS has had a lot of benefit, or we've had increased funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and with this year that stopped. Our anticipated amount of funding that was going to be available to South Dakota, it significantly decreased. We originally were planning on having an additional $30 million for EQIP and an additional $18 million for CSP and an additional $5 million for our ASEP program. So with losing that funding, it really put us in a different spot where we did have, over the last couple of years, we've really been talking to producers across the state saying that this money is available, you should come and you should sign up. And we've had a real surge in our applications across the state. And this year we're in a position where we're having to tell producers that unfortunately with the reduction of this funding, we may not be able to get your application anymore, which has been really hard. I know it's been really hard on field staff across the state having to deliver that particular message. But we still have classic funding. So while we may have lost some funding, we still have almost $14 million of EQIP available this year, and we still have $25 million available for CSP. And South Dakota has traditionally been a state that, while other states may not be able to spend all of their allocation that they've been given, we can. And often we're in a position where, because we have a surplus of applications, we have the ability to pull funds from other states and actually spend it here in South Dakota. So while our initial allocation for EQIP was only $14 million, we've already spent right around $18 million in the state. So we've already asked for additional funding. We've already received funding from other states, and we're asking for additional funding still. For CSP, we started with $24 million. We're still working on CSP. We still have a little ways to go on that, but we're actually asking for additional funding for CSP also. So it's one of those benefits. Well, while we did have a reduction through IRA, and we're not going to get quite to that same level that IRA would have taken us, we're still in a pretty good spot because we're able to ask for those additional funds, and we're still trying to find ways to bring that additional funding into the state. So we're trying to find that way. We've had this kind of nice gradual upswing in our ability to service more producers across the state through EQIP, through CSP, and through our ASEP program, and we're still working on trying to find ways to make that happen as we move forward. Still no news on a farm bill yet. There's lots of different rumors out there, and I really don't want to speculate on what this looks like, because every day I look at the news, it's something a little different what that thing looks like. So I'm hoping, and we've heard from at least two members of our delegation, that looks like it could be pretty good chance that we could see a farm bill this year. One was kind of on the fence, it might not happen this year. So we'll have to see what that ultimately looks like by the time we hit the end of the year. Something else I really wanted to touch on, though, that is often brought up in debate, is what is conservation technical assistance? CTA. CTA is something that's really important to NRCS, and it has been ever since the start of NRCS. Conservation technical assistance is the hands-on support NRCS provides to farmers, ranchers, and landowners to help them conserve natural resources while maintaining productive operations. This is the technical work that we do. NRCS employs across the nation several thousand employees that have science backgrounds. These are going to be agronomists, range conservationists, soil scientists, engineers, people who have the knowledge to be able to actually work with a farmer hand in hand and address natural resource concerns. Not all of our assistance is tied to financial assistance. Our programs, EQIP, CSP, and ASEP. We have the ability, when a farmer walks in the door and asks a question, we have the ability to answer the question. We don't have to have them sign up for a program. We don't have to sign up for anything. They can come in and ask any of our scientists or any of our specialists a question and get an answer. They can have somebody go out to their property and visit with them on their property and look at a resource concern and come up with a prescription. They don't have to sign up for anything. It's a voluntary program. It's free service. And that's one of those things that NRCS has always been very proud to provide. And it does take funding, and that's why we have an allocation set aside for CTA. So we'll have to see what this looks like as we move forward, but it's one of those items that I want to make sure that people across the state of South Dakota are aware that NRCS has this service, has this opportunity to provide this to our producers. And you don't have to sign up for anything to get it. Right now, I know there has been some discussion about reducing CTA and just limiting to EQIP and CSP, which is definitely doable for NRCS. It would limit our ability, though, if we didn't have those CTA dollars to be able to provide the normal service that we have been in the future. So just wanted to just kind of state that out there, that CTA is, at least from my standpoint, CTA is an important opportunity. And I definitely encourage any of you that are from producer groups, encourage your producers to come talk to us. We are a non-regulatory, voluntary service. Any information that we discuss with producers stays with us, and everything is protected under Privacy Act. If a producer comes and talks to us, we don't tell anybody else that a producer came and talked to us. We're just here to provide service and provide recommendations for producers. So as we move forward into the rest of this year, we still have some big items that we're waiting on. One is what does this reorganization plan look like for NRCS? How is that going to ultimately impact? But we also have some opportunities with this. There's the saying, don't fix something that isn't broken. Well, right now, unfortunately, across USDA or across NRCS, we have some broken parts right now. We have a lot of staff that took DRP, a lot of staff that left, and we have a lot of vacancies that we're having to try to figure out what to do with. And with that, it's giving us the opportunity to look at restructure, to look at reorganization, and try to realign some things and make the agency function in a way that's more consistent with the rest of the nation. It's one of those challenges sometimes with NRCS is every single state in NRCS functions a little bit differently. And this is our opportunity to become a little bit more consistent with other states. So we have some opportunities. Even though we have a lot of challenges right now, these challenges are also bringing forward a lot of opportunities. And that's really where I'm trying to stay focused on right now, is the opportunities that lay in front of us. This is also a huge opportunity for our partners to weigh in. Come talk to us. If there's something that you've seen that NRCS has been missing on, come talk to us. This is an opportunity as we develop whatever our reorganization plan looks like. This is an opportunity for you all to weigh in and provide us some input as we work on rebuilding NRCS and what we're going to look like as we move into the next year. So again, thank you. That's all I have. But if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be around, and I'll also have the rest of my staff that will be available, and we'll be giving presentations the rest of the agenda.
Sounds good. Thanks. And again, if anyone online has questions for our presenters today, please feel free to raise your hand or enter something into the chat. So we've had a conversation about the people, and now it's time to move into the practices, the conservation practices that we have on our agenda today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our state conservation engineer, Jim Reedy, who will speak with you about our next topic on the agenda. So thanks, Jim.
Thank you. No, I'm not listening to music. These are so I can hear all of you better if you have all these great questions for me. These are the new ones that have the hearing aids in them. They're kind of handy. Okay, so a couple quick things I want to get through here. First, one of the agenda for the bullets for me. EWP program. We have 2 active EWP projects in the state. Both of them were just recently fully executed, and we have agreements with the sponsors for those 2 projects. One project is with Game Fish and Parks as the sponsor on some spillway erosion repair on Dimmick Lake down south of Mitchell. And then the other one is a bridge project we're working on together with FEMA on the 319th Street Bridge in Clay County that crosses the Vermilion River. Again, they're both fully executed now. We're activating the agreements. I'll be meeting with John Schmidt on my staff, he's my AWP project manager. We're going to be in Pier tomorrow to meet with Game Fish and Parks to kind of get the ball rolling and make sure everybody's on the same page for what's required for the agreement process. And then the following week, we're going to be meeting with Clay County representatives. So that's where we are with EWP. Once we get a little bit of yellow equipment on the ground and we get things rolling, after we have designs and drawings and specifications ready and are ready to start construction, we'll have some news updates hopefully out for everybody to see. As far as the assistance helping landowners, I didn't take a look right away today. We have an engineering technical assistance request tool that we use for all of our field folks to submit requests for support for engineering assistance from our area staff, our area engineers and their crew. And the last time I looked at that, I believe we're sitting at right around between 400 to 450 active assistance requests across the state. Val's going to be talking about obligations. Tony was talking about the money we have available through EQIP and CSP. I don't know where we are with actual obligations and contracts for engineering practice assistance. So a lot of the assistance requests I think that we're seeing are kind of the preliminary planning assistance requests for our typical practices across the state, heavy on livestock watering systems, pipelines, tanks, wells, our grassed waterways, erosion control practices typically seen in the state. And I also know that our ag nutrient management team, they ended up with, in 15 counties across the state, 19 total applications for both EQIP and RCPP. I believe we're up to a total of 9 of those. Total have been funded, 7 EQIP, 2 RCPP, maybe 1 or 2 additional now. Thing about those, and I'll get into it a little bit in my waste transfer presentation, is we always have way more requests for funding in the applications than we actually are able to fund. I believe our total funding in that EQIP was about 1.9 million and RCPP totaled about 900,000. We had close to 6.5 million in needed dollars for those projects. So, and the team goes through a nomination process every year for new projects. This year we received 20 new nominations. So we're working on divvying out that workload and we'll see where those go for new applications. But general theme, we always have way more need than we have actual funding for it. So that's kind of an update on where we are with technical assistance on the engineering side. Okay, so for my big topic today, I want to talk about, you hit that next slide quick, Randy. Waste transfer. Conservation Practice Standard 634. I want to talk about waste transfer specifically when it comes to transfer from storage to final application in the field. We use this practice a lot within a system to transfer liquid manure or even solid manure from point A to point B within a system. For example, a lift station that's pumping from a solid separation basin to a storage pond. That's a typical use that we use this practice for. What I want to talk about today, I just want to put this forward to the committee a little bit and then we can discuss where we want to go after this. Let's go ahead and get rolling on these slides. Kind of the reasons for our discussion today. We have a national level NRCS payment schedule. You want to click that link for me, Randy? See if it'll open. It'll probably give you all kinds of nightmares. As far as how to share that. Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We won't go there. So you can go to our national NRCS webpage, and basically you can just search for payment schedules. And when you search on our national NRCS webpage, you can search for payment scenarios. And an entire list of every payment scenario available in the country is there for everyone to see. It's public facing. In the case of the 634 practice, the waste transfer practice, what we've seen happen since it became it never was before such a big, widespread, public-facing, transparent list of actual descriptions and narratives for the scenarios. When you open up the national 634 practice scenarios list, there's this statement. in the scenario description. It basically says pumping from the waste storage pond to the field or is to be applied according to the scene. These descriptions are a large, broad narrative applicable all across the country. So this is kind of the first thing with this public-facing side of things is we get producers that see this list, so they can go access and look at it anytime they want. And they come in and say, I want to do this. And this is how I want to do it. I want to pump. I want to put in a pipeline from my storage facility out to my fields for final distribution to my cropland. All right, next. And in the before situation within that scenario, this is actually the title of the section within the scenario. It says before situation. I'm not going to read that whole thing to you, but it talks about wastewater nutrients, takes out to where the wastewater nutrients are needed, where soil nutrients in near fields have reached high levels because that's where everybody applies. It's the shortest travel distance, it's the most convenient. Those sorts of issues are in our before situation for that practice scenario. All right, next. And then we have our South Dakota NRCS payment schedule that we use, that our field staff uses to determine which scenarios and how we're going to apply those scenarios in a contract, what the dollar figures are for incentive payments to the producers that are going to be in the contract. We include those 634 pipeline scenarios, but we have specific clarifications. Next. Kind of small, a little hard to see. But right here in the clarification language within our state payment schedule, we're saying this is eligible only for transportation of manure through the animal waste system, not to empty the system for manure application. In other words, its final destination in the field. And our payment schedule policy allows states to decide that we will or we won't apply this scenario or use any of these certain scenarios in our state. We have that. Tony has that capability. The leadership team in every state has the ability to say, we will or will not include this particular scenario in our state. So that's what's in our payment schedule. Next. And here's the other side of the coin. I talked about it a little bit in our technical assistance with our ag nutrient management team out of Mitchell. We've historically always had more funding requests and applications than we have available funding for. This year, $6.5 million in applications. We only were able to fund about 2.4. So our competition for funding means that we need to rank these applications. And when we rank them, we have this kind of order of emphasis based on resource concerns. We're an agency, we've talked about this in the past, we're always looking for, policy says, we need a resource concern identified. So our first priority in our ranking, existing operations with their primary resource concern is they have no runoff containment. They are a direct polluter to waters of the state. Those are a high priority. We need to help them no matter what. Second, we have existing operations with a resource concern of mortality containment. They have existing facility, they have existing storage for whatever reason. They now have to deal with mortality. And typically mortality you don't want contained inside your system. So somewhere sort of offsite away from the main storage facilities. So when you have a mortality facility somewhere just outside the boundaries of your operation, it's a whole nother set of issues with containment and runoff. So typically when we do mortality facilities, we're using a standard for roofs and structures, and we're putting a roof and walls on these mortality facilities and getting them out away from the animals where, if you're just rotating in and out of mortality within your feedlot or within your barns, you're never going to get rid of the issues that you have with biosecurity and disease. So mortality is a high need. Then third, existing operations that have aging containment, aging infrastructure, they need an upgrade, maybe they're going to expand. Maybe they want to close and abandon a portion of what they have because it's so old and put animals under roof. Those are kind of our third priority. Fourth, everything else. Okay? So like I said earlier, the top two tend to eat up all of our money. So we have that concern. All right, next. All right, just some policy references here that kind of support the reason we're doing what we're doing in South Dakota. All of these policy references come out of our Working Lands Conservation Programs Manual, Part 530. So this one says basically our conservation treatments in any conservation plan we do must improve the identified resource concerns. So we're visiting with a producer, he has this issue, this resource problem, whether that's plant productivity and health, available water for his animals out on the grazing system, erosion, wind erosion, soil, water erosion, whatever the case may be. We've identified those resource concerns, we need to figure out how to treat them. Next. Another part of 530, this is part 403. Ineligible practices include those for which the sole purpose is to enhance or protect production without addressing the natural resource concern or providing a conservation benefit as a result of treating that resource concern. Next. A lot of small stuff here. Basically this says participants, and this is about the side of waste management, nutrient management, our comprehensive nutrient management, or CNMP. We can progressively implement practices and activities that are in our CNMP, provided that these two criteria are met. Anything in the schedule of operations have to help address or improve a resource concern, are operable and functional as intended when implemented, and the participant has to follow an existing nutrient management plan, or includes in their contract a nutrient management practice standard, our 590 practice standard, as part of their CNMP. That's a requirement. And then the last part of that is if all of it is sold or transferred to another operation. That's a whole nother discussion. Next. So my final points here basically are currently NRCS national policy and our South Dakota regulations require that these AFO-CAFO operations follow a CNMP that basically requires proper application timing and utilization of our livestock nutrients. We currently have no regulatory requirements at play that mandate a specific way or method of taking that manure from storage to field. Nothing in the regulations, that's part of the operation and maintenance of an operation. Oops, I grabbed my wrong packet. I got some notes here. Hang on. All right. So I go back to that first set of resource concerns that we talked about having to do with nutrients, the actual description within the scenario, you know, the before condition that talked about maybe the fields closer to the operation are hot, high in nutrients, high in nitrogen, high in phosphorus, whatever the case may be. I guess to my knowledge, we don't really have those kinds of issues in South Dakota where we have high phosphorus loading or transport in the closest fields. Maybe DNR has other information or other kind of supporting need for us to address nutrient management in a way that distributes the manure farther away. That's a discussion we can have. I've always heard our state has plenty of land available for manure application. We currently have no county or locality zoning requirements that I know of that say you have to put your manure through a pipeline or you can't haul on our roads at this time of the year. As far as I know, we have none of those kind of requirements at play. But Tony asked that we present this to the State Tech Committee and ask if we feel that there's a need, we need to talk about this further. Maybe I need to set up a subcommittee with my team in Mitchell, with John Lentz, our team leader, myself, Glenn with pork producers, anybody else with DANR. We set this up where we talk about, well, we do feel there are maybe some valid resource concerns we need to address. I checked with some other states, okay, to find out if they do fund pipelines or transfer lines from storage to field. And I know for a fact that Wisconsin and Montana do, okay? In Wisconsin's case, what I found out was Wisconsin has, I have some numbers here, they have around 5,400 dairies, about 3 million cows, 228 custom applicators, and those folks are trying to spread 33 billion gallons of manure in a very tight fall window. That tight window means all these custom applicators are trying to scramble, traveling on all the roads, trying to get out to the fields in a hurry. The result is they've had more than 100 total pipeline breaks and spills with their umbilical cord lines that they use, their drag lines and their pumping lines that they take to the field. They've got major congestion on highways. And all of this basically says that if we weren't helping try to get this stuff to the field in a more efficient, quicker manner like this, they have to apply in direct conflict with our 590 standard. Wet, rainy, snowy, muddy conditions, applying on frozen ground. So that's how Wisconsin says we have this resource concern. It's a nutrient management resource concern. You know, it's not a convenience, it's not a productivity, it's just we need to get it there from point A to point B during better conditions. So that's the resource concern that they're dealing with. And in Montana, it's a little bit different. They have a prevalence of operations that had no way to get the manure from their place to their field without having the expense of trying to buy all this equipment that they would only use seasonally. And there was like maybe 1 or 2 custom applicators in the entire state that could get this work done. So it's like, well, we need to more efficiently get the nutrients from our systems to the field. So let's help get that done. So right now, I guess the take in South Dakota is we don't have those types of similar issues, at least from what I understand. So what I would offer, you know, we can have some discussion now if we want to, or I would just say I can get my contact information out to everybody in the group here today. I have cards on the table in the back. I'm happy to set up a subcommittee and we can hash this out. We can decide if we need to figure out if there are truly resource concern needs that we need to focus on in South Dakota that would justify this. But then I'll say the other issue I have from an NRCS management level is, okay, we now are able to identify a resource concern. That's the top priority. This is now part of the capabilities of our scenarios to be able to put this into a contract for a pipeline distribution system of some kind. We're limited on funds for the foreseeable future. We probably will be. So I put our field office staff through the work of spinning their wheels on all of this, getting the planning done, identifying the measurement of the resource need that operation has, get it ranked, and they never get approved. The ranking, they always fall out low priority because they're not high enough in comparison to those first 2 or 3. That's something else we in South Dakota would have to deal with. So with that, that's all I was going to talk about. And if we want to talk a little bit now, we can. Otherwise, we can keep on rolling and I can set up a subcommittee. Any thoughts? Any input for me? Glenn, I talked to you yesterday.
Yeah, I like your, excuse me, I like your idea of a subcommittee. I got some specific questions that
Sure.
Probably need to be addressed, just like, you know, is portable equipment going to be qualified, or does it have to be a permanent installation, or that type of thing? But
Right.
I think
Yeah, those questions come up.
We're going to have, and I think the other sector that needs to be involved is the dairy sector at a high level, because they have
Yep.
a lot more volume than what the swine sector does, just
Right.
based on the nitrogen content of their, and more liquids in their products than there is in ours, so.
Right.
They
Yep.
have more volume. So I think there's some real merits to it. Concerns are, as you already addressed, are funding availability. Is there going to be funds available, and where is this going to be prioritized? Because
Right.
our primary concern is not necessarily with the environmental aspect, but more on the infrastructure impact of putting tanks on the road and putting trucks on the road and that type of thing. We're starting to see some, not so much counties, but township regulations imposed on
Oh, okay.
winter applications, so the utilization of the roads and the right of ways.
Oh, right. Yeah, for the umbilical lines down the right of way, sure.
So
Yep.
that's why I say, I think there's some real merits to having a sidebar discussion
bet.
in the subcommittee, address those concerns, we can prioritize, these are the things we can do within the environmental part,
Right.
and you and I talked yesterday, the infrastructure is not really under your umbrella, but
Yeah.
it is part of a concern from our producers.
Yeah, right now, our take is getting it from the storage to the field is an operation side. It's an operation and maintenance part of a CNP. But I think we get you, the dairy side, Troy with DANR, a representative from their livestock program section, and my team, and yeah, we at least get started talking.
Right.
I'd love to. Yep.
And as far as prioritization goes for funding, we have some flexibility there. And that's one of the purposes of this committee, is to talk about prioritization and what level of prioritization should we give practices like this in the state.
It's good to hear because that, you know, I think the total cost is going to be much smaller than we've been looking at putting in the containment system itself. You're looking at,
Yeah.
you know, the pumps and drag line and that type of thing. Is that qualifier? Does it have to be permanent piping? Permanent piping is probably going to be a little bit less lucrative, and just because of manure management plan changes, land ownership changes, and so forth, so you don't have that particular piece of property. You need to have that flexibility where you can move the portable pumps and the drag line rather than putting in permanent piping. So it's fine if you own the land and you have enough volume or enough acres there that you can spread that manure on to make it valuable. That can be a variable in some cases.
Very true. He gets pipeline in just like we talk about on leased land or working with the tribes out on pasture ground and put a lot of money in on pipelines and tanks and all of a sudden lose the lease. Similar
You can have
thing.
change of ownership of land or
Yeah.
lease change where somebody denies access to the property for manure distribution and so forth.
Right. A lot of complexity. I'm happy to discuss it, and we probably get somebody on Val's crew to join us, and have a discussion. Happy to. Okay.
So if we're gonna be having the subcommittee
Yeah.
and trying to have this discussion about where we're moving forward with this practice or not, or how we're gonna move forward, when do we have to have the information in if we're gonna make any changes for 26?
So the scenario, we have potential scenarios present. So they're within the suite of options to adopt. We wouldn't have to make new scenarios. You know, we would want to know by, you know, probably August timeframe.
Okay.
Okay. And what I'd like to do is if we run this through the subcommittee, I'd still like to have the final recommendation from the subcommittee discussed in the next stack before we make it official. So if we can have that subcommittee before the next stack meeting, so we can be ready for recommendations.
So we tentatively scheduled the next state technical advisory committee for September 10th. And so the timing might be really good for your committee to meet and then to have the reports and such ready, so.
Okay. So we need to have a summer meeting. Early summer meeting.
And Glenn, if you have any other recommendations on other members who should be a part of this discussion, we would definitely appreciate knowing that. You already recommended the dairy industry be a part of this conversation. So if there's anybody else that you can think of that should be part of the discussion, we're open.
Sounds good. Any question off the online?
We're good, Jim.
Oh, good. All right. I'll end it there and we'll continue on later. Thanks, everybody.
And so for the online folks, we did put Jim's email address and his phone number and such into the chat, so that would be for your convenience. So we're going to take a pause in the conservation practices section to recognize our sister agency, the Farm Service Agency, and Ryan Vandenberg. So you may have the floor, please.
All right, well, thank you, Glenn. Thank you all for having me here, and I apologize a little bit late, had another call that just ran a little long, but just provide some FSA updates for y'all with what we have going on our program side. Currently implementing ECAP. That was another emergency program that ran out with payments to farmers, so that's been rolling right along. We started, we're less than 30 days into it, and we've already made 18,000 payments out the door, over $400 million with that. So that's rolling right along. Obviously springtime in South Dakota comes planting. getting some guys in already. They're done putting their crops in and reporting their acres to us, so county offices are busy with that as well. Probably the big thing, and I'm not going to steal Owen's thunder on CRP sign up, so I'll defer to him and he can share all those details with you on that. On the farm loan side of things, activity has been a little bit higher over last year, probably partly due to some of the grain prices being a little bit lower yields than expected. Cattle market's been strong, so that's really helped out a lot of our borrowers, but we are seeing some financial distress out there that we're having to navigate through. Most of the increase in activity on the farm loan side has been on our direct farm ownership loans, so loans used to purchase real estate. That activity has been sharply up this year, so land is changing hands and going to newer beginning farmers. Other than that, obviously staffing has been a hot topic recently, and I'm sure NRCS, you guys know the same, with the deferred resignation programs and things like that. We were not immune. I've had about 30 employees take that off ramp, so figuring out how to provide office coverage has been a challenge recently. Overall, we're across the state, we're doing pretty good, but we do have a few areas where we're understaffed, even more so than we typically are. So looking at our options of trying to get people into those locations that we can continue to provide services there. So that likely will continue. We have some lease issues that we're working through, and then it's just kind of whatever else pops up during the day. So that's kind of a quick high overview of what's going on in FSA. I don't know if there's any questions for me. Otherwise, you can save them for Owen when he covers CRP sign up.
And Ryan, you've been doing a great job as the acting state executive director.
Yep.
Has there been any rumor on when we might have a permanent political appointee appointed?
Yep. So they came out with the first round of state executive directors here. They started May 5th. There were 26 that were onboarded then. South Dakota was not one of those that has anyone lined up. I do know our administrator, Bill Beam, is working on doing interviews for those. I would imagine in the next coming weeks, they'll probably have another round of state executive directors announced, but don't have a solid timeline for when that would be. But they seem to be moving fairly quickly with the ones that have come on board. So I would think in the next coming months we'll have one for South Dakota. So, all right. Well, I'll be hanging around the rest of the morning. So if you have questions for me, otherwise, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, we'll get back on track with our people and moving into practices updates. We're going to move forward into the ecological sciences update with conservation planning and conservation practices with Jessica Michalski, our state resource conservationist.
All right, good morning, everyone. Like Colette said, I'm Jessica Michalski, state resource conservationist. Several years ago now, both engineering and ecological sciences got together and decided that we would only do updates to our field office tech guide in October and April. As a reminder, conservation practice standards are updated at a national level, and the state has a year to update any information that we want to update in state. Sounds like engineering is going to go to updating just in October moving forward. We'll probably stick with October and April just because of the timeliness of some of our vegetative practices. I'm not going to talk a lot about the changes that we made in April because you do have a handout in your packet. So I'm not going to get into too many details. We did make some significant changes to some of our technical guides. As a reminder, our technical guides are really just that. They are to assist both planners and producers in implementing conservation practices on the landscape. So we are facing some challenges, obviously, when it comes to diving into small-scale agriculture within the last 5 years. And so we found the need to do
more changes or updates to those, and also additional technical notes. So our first technical note on small scale agriculture was updated in, or was developed in October. Now we have 2 more that we released in April, so, and those are listed there. One thing I wanted to point out as far as section 4 updates on our conservation practices, we did update, or we did adopt 1 new conservation practice standard in South Dakota, and that's the soil carbon amendment. That practice standard is used for applying materials derived from plant materials or animal byproducts to the land. We've had some interest in this, so we will allow, or have this practice, we'll have some payment scenarios developed for fiscal year 26. The other handout in here is just the news release that came out last week on drought. I know it's on everybody's minds. We do have the pasture and range web page for South Dakota NRCS. Big thanks to Emily Rohrer, our state rangeland management specialist, and her work with other staff on getting stuff up to date on there. So you can see that there's some maps there, both where we're sitting as far as normal forage production, and you can see we've got a lot of red there, so hopefully we'll get some rains this week. And then we also have a predicted or forecasted peak production as far as forage production. And again, a lot of red there, so hopefully we'll get some rains. That's all I have, unless there's any questions for me. All right, back to you, Colette.
Super. Okay.
Thank you, Jess.
On the page with the map on it, there is a line at the top that says visitfarmers.gov. So we do distribute news releases out through a direct email service, but also we have a listserv. And you can go to the farmers.gov website, and then on there you scroll down to select the topics that you want to receive. And if you choose the South Dakota drought topic, then you will receive updates such as the forage production index that Emily produces. So just wanted to alert you to the opportunity to receive subscription updates to your inbox. Okay, great. Thank you for the ecological sciences update. And next we'll move to the wetland determinations and highly erodible land update with our Assistant State Conservationist for Compliance, Dee Kovic.
All right, it's in your packet there, the usual maps. You got the outstanding wetland determinations, how many are completed up to now. And then also have the highly erodible land determinations in there. Nothing's out of the ordinary. It's pretty much standard for the last few years. Looking at those numbers, I'm sure we're going to still get HEL determinations up to about 1,500, and I'm sure we'll do just over 900 wetland determinations. But I did include a new map in there just for the heck of it, just so you kind of see how many certified determinations we've done. And this is what's in our statewide database layer. And so the third map in there tells you that, you know, total number of determinations is 111,165, comprising 451,235 acres. And then you can see how it's kind of spread across the state. And obviously the eastern side is where they're wanting most of the determinations done. But we do have them all across. They're out into the western part in some different areas. That's all I have. Any questions at all about this? Anybody online? Yeah.
When you look at that last map you made reference to, why the discrepancy by county lines on a couple of those? If you look at Hamilton County or down into Bond County.
You know, it's funny, for a lot of years there, there's just certain counties, and you mean as far as the number of determinations that are done?
Obviously there's something beyond resource related that there, because you wouldn't see that gap in those areas if it was purely resource related.
No, I mean, a lot of this is driven by the need for determinations in order to determine where they're going to put or install tile lines, pattern tile systems. So as you go through these different counties, what I've found over the years is just certain areas in certain counties where people just don't do that, or they don't want to do that, or they don't have something there driving it. You can look in like Lincoln County and might be Brookings County there. I mean, it's pretty much green. Well, there's something there that's driving determinations to be done. You know, what is it? Is it just a company that's, you know, having more product fairs of some sort, that getting more people interested in generating that interest, or, you know, if you're getting farther down. The one county that was interesting, it shows more now, is Minor County. Minor County forever just never had a lot of wetland determinations. It was just kind of like a donut hole almost, and then everything around it was getting a fair amount of work. Bonham, yeah, I mean, that's, there's work there, but it's definitely not like Yankton. Seems like Turner, Yankton feed off of each other. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't have a great answer to it. It's just, there's cultural things, there's, you know, businesses driving certain things, and as far as the resource side of it, you know, you get to that southern part, yeah, you're on the southern edge of the pothole region, so people maybe aren't as concerned with it.
Yeah, it's probably the most prominent gap, if you will, is Hamlin County. It's a little strange.
Oh, up in there,
Up to
yeah.
determinations at just like Watertown.
Yeah.
And you look all the way around it, I mean, there's, yeah, I don't know.
It sticks out, for sure. I don't have a great answer on that one at all, so I can look into it though, see if my specialist up there has anything to say about it, but yeah, we never have a strong workload there. Anybody else?
One reason why Lincoln is pretty heavily covered was because of the staff down there for a while. They made a concerted effort to work with producers and
Okay.
get determinations done, so
Yeah.
that was part of it.
Yep, I can see that. All right, thanks.
Very good, thank you very much. So next, after the practices, we'll move into the program section. So we'll invite Owen up here and with your PowerPoint presentation, and it'll give us some good news, right?
News. I don't know if it's good yet, but it's news.
Okay.
So hot off the press, Monday, USDA announced CRP sign-up availability again. So we opened up continuous and general sign-up. Started Monday. We had 6 notices published, a lot of information pushed out to the field, and some tight windows. So obviously with conservation partners, our relationship with NRCS, we've got a busy 3 weeks and the rest of the year in front of us as far as getting conservation back on the landscape or re-enrolled, what have you. So go ahead with the next slide. These are the 6 notices that were published. Obviously the continuous, the heli re-enrollment, that doesn't really encompass South Dakota, that's more for the southern states. General CRP, we had our soil rental rates were updated or approved, and continuous sign up through some CREP agreements. That's specific to agreements that were in place and have not been revised prior to September 30th of 19. So again, ours have been updated, so they fall under the first notice with a continuous sign up. And then opportunities for the SHIP, the Soil Health Income Protection Program, re-enrolling those acreages back into either general, continuous, grasslands, or CREP. So, next slide. I'm going to cover some common policy applicable to both the continuous and the general signups. Some Native American tribal land reminders, soil rental rates that were published, the sign-up deadlines, some expiring CRP letters that are going to be issued yet this week, updated forms, and then some brief discussion on interim conservation plans. Next slide. Go ahead. All right, so first topic would be the soil rental rate update. So back last fall, we had our CRP subcommittee weighed in on this, as well as approval by our state committee, state FSA committee. And we submitted 2 counties for alternative soil rental rates. The rest of the rates were determined, or all of them were derived or started with the NAS, National Ag Statistics Service reporting. So those rates were submitted by them. We got those approved then again this last Monday. And there were some ups and downs across the state. We'll get into it here in a little bit on a further slide, but one of the drastic changes for our soil productivity index, we went from 5 groupings to 3 groupings. So we no longer have the 1.25 or the 1.5 soil groupings. So this average soil rental rate is, I don't want to say it's a misnomer, but it's a starting point, and then the factors are taken from that. So we're never going to realize, unless we get into a Clear 30 practice or some of the wetland incentives, we'll never realize that true average soil rental rate for a county. So first hiccup, first mark against the signups this year is going to be the downward trend of soil rental rates being offered for those contract acreages. Each county office will display their soil posting report, soil rental rate posting report for public display. We also have those available on our FSA website. Go ahead. So these are kind of a side-by-side from where we were at in 24 to go into 25 and some of the significant changes to the sign-up opportunities. The first, as I indicated, was the soil productivity index. We had our 5 groupings, which was the half, 3/4, 1, 1.25, 1.5. Now goes to just 3 groupings. So we're at the half, 0.75, and 1. So again, our rental rate is going to be factored initially to get them into those different groupings based on productivity. Most we can realize is the 100% value. The inflationary adjustment, the 10% that was available under 24, got taken away. So it's 0% inflationary. Climate Smart got taken away. Clear 30 did dip a little bit, but the Clear 30 is a 30-year contract, and that now is at 23.2% versus the 27.5% that it was in 24. Go ahead. Some significant deadlines in front of us. So, as I indicated, we started sign-up May 12th. Those initial sign-ups for general goes through June 6th. Continuous is going to have its first batching process line in the sand as June 6th. So we have a 3-week window, some timelines. Unfortunately, the batching for continuous is going to be looking at it as a first come, first served basis. A submitted offer needs to have signatures obtained to get it into a submitted status in our software. Going to be high stress in the county offices to get to that June 6th deadline. Of course, we don't want to have participants be hindered or handicapped by not getting their offers submitted as timely as we can. So really some concerns on the first come, first serve, but we're going to do what we can to get as many in the bucket as we can. The reason for the batching is we have limited acreage availability. Because of the extension of the Farm Bill, we're capped at the 27 million acres. We currently have 900,000 and some change that are expiring this year. Along with our wiggle room under the cap, we're right at 25.9 million nationally. We can get up to the 27. So roughly around 1.8 million available for all signups this year. We've got opportunity for registers for general sign-up. I hope we don't need them. General sign-up is kind of a non-player in South Dakota with our continuous sign-up opportunities. But we do have the opportunity, obviously, for general. And then our next deadlines after we get through the ranking, general sign-ups results are announced, continuous batchings are announced. We've got our first date of September 19th for NRCS to get the conservation plans or interim conservation plans completed
and return back to FSA to obtain all the signatures to get to contract approval. And then we have deadlines of September 30th. We have to have those contracts approved. We have no authorities after September 30th. In all cases, all signups, October 1 is the first available date for the effective date of the CRP ones this year. They do have opportunity to defer it up to 6 months, but October 1 would be our first effective date for all of these sign-up opportunities. Next slide, please. As I indicated, letters are going to be mailed out to all CRP1 participants with expiring contracts effective for this year, giving them outlines of opportunities for the sign-ups. They're not contract specific, it's just a general, lays out the groundwork, framework for what opportunities are available for the participants. Again, talks about the general continuous and grasslands. Conservation easements or working lands programs is provided, so there might be other opportunities outside of CRP. Also tells them they can just let their contract expire. Don't have to do anything. And then advises them to contact their local FSA office with questions. Encourage any discussions with the partners, whether it be PF or NRCS staff, to get them in contact with their county office early so that we can get them an appointment. In addition to the timeline for this sign up, we're going to have our acreage reporting season upon us. Crops went in, fairly easily this year. So we look for an uptick in our acreage reporting as well. So there will be some competing time with our staff in the county office. Next slide. The interim conservation plans, I will pat ourselves on the back in South Dakota. It's not been something that we've entertained or tried to exercise very much in South Dakota. We pride ourselves in getting a completed conservation plan with that contract prior to approval. It is an opportunity if workload does not allow us to get those finalized plans done. But I think with the timelines we have, projecting end of June, we'll know our results. We'll have July, August, and September to get those plans completed. 100% going to depend on workload and the interest in the program, but hope that we can minimize the use of those interim conservation plans. There'll be some future guidance on what that looks like if needed, and some future notices. Next slide. Next slide. So this is specific just to the continuous CRP sign-up. Again, sign-up started the 12th, and it's going to be opportunities to submit non-CREP, so straight up continuous CRP offers, and CREP continuous offers. Difference in this case is in the past, CREP was on a non-compete basis. There was no batching. CREP will also be in a batch process this go-round. So everything that is going to be submitted, they'll have that line in the sand initially for June 6th, and we'll look at all of those to make sure we have available acres for acceptance. All sign-up start dates, effective dates are going to be October 1, and again, they may defer that up to 6 months if there's a reason for it on the landscape. Next slide. Future batch for all continuous CRP and CREP is going to be accepted, or I'm sorry, the first batch is going to be accepted on a non-competitive first come, first serve. I've already said that. Kind of a concern of mine. They're placed in a batch to ensure that we don't exceed the 27 million acreage cap, and then we can follow a COC approval upon notification of that acceptance by that batch process. We get past the June 6th, if somebody still wants to offer, we're going to accept those offers through like July 31, I believe, as our line in the sand or cutoff. And based on availability of acreage cap, we may or may not have an additional batch process past that June 6th deadline. One thing I have not touched on yet is the grassland CRP sign-up. That was not announced with the general and continuous. There's a future announcement for that. That will be an available sign-up as well. Again, concerns on the 27 million acreage cap and being able to capture all of the interest that we may have. Next slide. Again, I just said this out loud. I'm ahead of myself, but any offers after that initial June 6th deadline can be taken through that July 31. Next slide. This is where some decisions have to be made by the participant. There are some additional incentives when we're looking at certain practices, anything that's related to the water quality incentives, so our CP23s, 37s, 23As, they can get an additional 20% on their over and above their rental payment. Clear 30 would also get the 20% because a lot of the Clear 30 is targeted at the water practices. And in addition to that, they can get the 23.2% to sign up for that 30-year contract. So roughly 42.2% over and above their offered rental payment if they sign up for the Clear 30 with that available CP practice that would get that. Maximum payment rates, $300 an acre for non-CREP, $380 an acre for Clear 30. We don't bump that often in South Dakota. Southeast part of the state or extreme eastern corridor may have some of those acreages that could potentially bump that. They would just be held down to those thresholds. We still have, for new land offered, the signing incentive payment for 32.5% and practice incentive payment at a 50%, which is in addition to the cost share that's available on the new installations. The little box off to the side, the CREP sign-up incentives, it's going to be applicable to each specific CREP agreement. So we've got the James River, the Big Sioux River, watershed CREP project areas, and then we've got the 3 tribal CREPs throughout the state with the Rosebud, Ogallala, and Cheyenne River tribes. So the CREPs would be specific to that. There are some additional incentives specific to those CREP agreements. Next slide. Next slide. The maximum payment rate for general sign-up limits us to the 240, where continuous was at the 300 or 380. Next slide. And then our EBI factors, which general is ranked from, did not change from the last sign-up. So the points, cover-based, water quality, on-farm benefits, air quality enduring, and then cost is based on after. That's a to be determined. That factor is set by the national level going from there. I believe that's the end, correct? Yes. So real quick, I guess on that, are there any questions CRP related? If not, I'll give a quick update on ECP and let you have the floor back. Anything online? Perfect. They did update the fact sheets, which are available on the USDA website for all of the new CRP opportunities. The Clear 30, the continuous, the general, and then that wetland incentive. ECP-wise, continues to be popular. We're seeing an uptick in drought applications in the western tier, southwest part of the state. We still have some residual effects from the floods last spring, and then we've had some wildfires that we're addressing in the central, north central part of the state that are some active sign-ups or helping with those producers that were affected. So in the event there's some disaster-related events in specific counties, reach out to the local county staff to get the county committee on board with requesting implementation to help with those disaster-related events. So, anything else for the good of the order or questions for myself? Thank you.
Thanks, Owen.
Yes, thank you, Owen. All right. Now we'll move into the NRCS Conservation Programs of the Farm Bill with Val Dupreez, who is our Assistant State Conservationist for Programs. Thanks, Val.
Thank you, Colette. All right, Randy? So good morning. I'm Val Dupreez, as Colette said, Assistant State Conservationist for Programs. So this morning we're going to talk about the NRCS programs, Environmental Quality Incentives programs, Conservation Stewardship program,
Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and then our Agricultural Easement Program. So next slide. For just an overall view of what we're working on with applications, I've lumped together our EQIP and our CSP applications, and coming into the year, coming into the year, we had 2,600 applications to process that we had received in 24 that were either new applications and or unfunded applications. So we brought those applications forward to 25. We had a batching date, and now we're working on obligating contracts. So one thing I'll mention is there was the map on the lower right-hand side shows the density of our applications. So the darker blues have the higher number of applications, the lighter colors have the lower number of applications. So our applications are pretty well spread out throughout the state, and field offices are working towards the obligation process. We feel that we have over $100 million worth of unfunded applications that we brought in to fiscal 24. So this is a national graphic that our national office has available for us, and that was their estimations. So next slide. Relative to CSP, so far we've contracted 123 obligations. About 50 of those were in our CSP renewals. So we would have obligated those in the fall or prior to the end of December in 2024. So they're fiscal 25 contracts, but we just had to have them obligated before the end of December. The remaining approximate 80 we have obligated here within the last few weeks. So these are just our classic funds, our farm bill funds. This does not include the Inflation Reduction Act funds that Tony had mentioned earlier. So we are about 70% obligated with our CSP dollars. We're working towards finishing obligations hopefully by the end of May. Next slide. From an EQIP perspective, we've got 172 active contracts, and we're about 70% obligated there as well. These are only our farm bill funds. These do not include the Inflation Reduction Act funds that are on pause at this point. So we're hoping to be obligated by the end of May for EQIP as well. Next slide. All right, so I've got Matt Morlock here. He's going to come up and provide an update on RCPP. Those projects are working through, so we've got a couple projects within RCPP that are working through the final year of their obligations, and hopefully the partners will come back and do a renewal with us.
I think they will. I think things have moved ahead enough that they will be willing to do that. So, and I'll run through that here in a second, a little bit. I'll go ahead, Andy. As you guys know, with RCPP, it's a large project that has a lot of little projects within it. And within the current environment, they're all in various stages of what can happen and what can happen. So I thought today it'd be a good idea to run through where we're at, with which projects are paused and which ones are not paused. And I'll start with the unpaused projects. You'll see some of these projects have little asterisks behind them. Those are IRA funded projects. And as of 2 weeks ago, that funding was released. And so those projects that have been obligated, which means they have signed supplemental agreements, they were able to move ahead about 2 weeks ago. And then the other projects on here are farm bill funded projects, and those were green lighted back in January, early on in the process. So we were able to actually have a couple batching periods for 3 of the projects, which is a good sign. With Big Sioux, we were able to obligate 5 producer projects, and that's going to expend all of their available financial assistance. So that project we'll be looking at a renewal hopefully moving forward when we have the opportunity. Then with Lewis and Clark and Lower James, as Jim mentioned, we were able to fund 2 ag waste systems with that project for $900,000. They are also going to be eligible for renewal now. Then lastly, with the Northeast Glacial Lakes project, we were able to fund 16 out of 17 applications. We had one that was deemed ineligible. It didn't meet the goals and objectives of that project. So we were able to fund everything that came in the door with that project as well. That's just shy of $900,000 that they were able to obligate with that project. So we've seen some good movement with the projects that are available to move ahead. Like I said, they had signed supplemental agreements, so we can move ahead with them. I would also note, if you making sure every acre counts with SDSU. That one, we had the technical assistance agreement signed with them, so they were able to do technical work, but they don't have their financial assistance yet, which normally would be of concern because you don't have the money to go work with the producers on the back end. But we feel like with making sure every acre counts, that's okay, because it is a very front-end heavy technical assistance project where they're meeting with producers, taking their in-their field data, their combine data, and computing what's profitable for that producer and what's not. So a lot of front-end work. It's about a year's process to get to the point where they're even going to need technical assistance. So we've greenlighted them to move ahead with their technical assistance into that project. And we should be on pause and be able to do their financial assistance before they need it. So that's where we're standing at on existing projects that were obligated. Randy, if you want to go to the next slide. We still have 8 projects that are under a pause. They don't have their supplemental agreement signed yet. We're hoping that they get released soon. There's 4 RCPP classics, 2 of which are IRA funded, and 2 of them are Farm Bill funded. Then we have 4 AFA projects, and those are all IRA funded. That we're working on negotiating with those partners in good faith, that we feel like they're going to get released at some point. So I think once we get the green light to go ahead with our supplemental agreements, we'll be able to get these projects running very quickly after that. But we currently are looking at just shy of $100 million in funding that we're waiting for the green light to go ahead. And more importantly, that's about $73 million of producer payments that we're hopefully going to get released soon, that we'll be able to work with producers again and we move ahead. So that's where we're sitting at with all of our RCPP projects that we currently have. Is there any questions out there on these projects? Good deal. If you want to go ahead to that last slide. National funding opportunities. With RCPP, we always need a national funding opportunity before we can take in new project applications. And I get asked that question a lot. As of now, we don't have a date for when that's going to happen or if it'll happen this year. We're seeing some movement at headquarters with some requests for information that signal they're thinking about it. So I hope we have one coming soon. But I would tell the group, if we're going to wait for that funding opportunity to start discussing a project, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. So what I'm doing is I want to challenge everybody to start thinking about projects that they're looking at and interested in, and starting that discussion now before that funding opportunity comes out. And Jim brought up, we have way more egg waste system demand than we have funding for. That might be an opportunity to get a coalition of partners together and submit an RCPP to just look at funding egg waste systems around the state. Ideas like that. The other thing I would say is we're pretty sure we're going to see a decrease in the available funds, so it's going to be a tougher competition this time. So I'd also like to see partners maybe discussing amongst themselves and getting coalitions together and submitting projects that way, because I think they'll be more competitive that way. So be thinking about that. And when you kind of get an idea together, feel free to reach out to me and we can work through that. I can help find other partners maybe, or just help with those ideas and things like that. So I would end it with that challenge of let's start talking now before we get that opportunity date and get that announcement, because we don't want to be behind the 8 ball. We do have a need out there. This is an opportunity to bring additional funding into our state to meet those producer needs. So it's something that we want to take advantage of. I think that's all I have. Any questions?
We'll do questions at the end.
Okay.
Yep. David?
I was getting ahead of myself with questions.
Hey everybody, I'm David Flannery, the Easement Program Manager for the NRCS here in South Dakota. At the last STAC meeting, I briefly discussed what we had for funding applications, and we had not been able to make selections yet at that time. Since then, we had put in for a funds request for one of our quarterly funds assessments with national headquarters for our ASAP ALE program. That program for our Farm Bill side has been extremely underfunded for a long time. Our full allocation was only about $655,000 with roughly $18 million worth of application backlog. Our highest ranking application was going to cost roughly 2.5 million. So we put our funds request in and were successful. That is not something we've really been able to say for ASAP ALE in the past, other than for just minute amounts of money to kind of close some gaps. So that was a big relief for us to get that. This will be our first one we're looking at. It's going to be in Meade County. This one's a really neat project adjacent to Bear Butte, and we'll be working with South Dakota Ag Land Trust on that one. As far as our ASAP WRE goes, we were able to tentatively select, and we're moving forward with working on obligation for 4 WREs. We have 3 that are 30-year applications and one that's perpetual. Those total about 460 acres for about $2.1 million. We left a little bit of buffer in our allocation as 2 of those require appraisal, so we want to ensure that we don't go over budget. All of our fiscal year 25 IRA applications, of course, are still paused at this time as with the other programs. And we have 3 pending ALE and 1 WRE if we're able to continue with those funds. One slightly unique situation that only ASAP has to deal with compared to the other FA programs is we have to do a lot of contracting for our due diligence. So that's one thing that we're facing right now with our current budgetary and purchasing restrictions, is that despite the statutory need and requirement to get our environmental record searches done, our title work done for these, we're facing a lot of difficulty getting those worked through the system. So our team is working as diligently as possible with national level contracting to ensure that these continue to move forward. But that's one challenge we are facing now, despite having those Farm Bill funds available. The good thing with the ALE side of it is, since those are entity held easements, we have a little bit more flexibility to defer some of that due diligence to post obligation. So we'll be sitting good there, but that is a challenge we're facing on the WRE side of things. That's all I've got for today.
All right, just have couple more slides. So then, just wrapping up, looking ahead to fiscal 26, as Tony had mentioned, we're continuing to request additional funds to support the applications we have that are unfunded and fully ranked and evaluated. We'll continue to wait to hear back from those requests, but we're also looking ahead to fiscal 26. So, you know, we're working with field offices to seek out the things that went well in 25 and things that they'd like to see updated for fiscal 26. And then we're also looking to collect updated feedback from local work groups on what some of our priorities need to change or be updated to. So with that, we'll update our program rankings based on feedback from our local work groups. And in addition, we're also looking to consult with the program subcommittee within the state technical group here. So that's going to be something that those of you that have participated on the program subcommittee in the past will reach out and make contact to see what your interest is moving forward, as well as anyone else that would be interested in participating in the program subcommittee. As a new member, be sure and reach out to me and we'll be in contact and coordinate additional communications yet to come. So, and lastly, you know, we're just laying the foundation in preparation for a new farm bill. There's a lot of things that we do internally that lead up to, you know, a program consideration. So we're working to finalize a lot of those resource concern assessments, developing guidance for field offices in preparation of farm bill updates as they roll out. So with that, Colette, we'll open it up for questions for myself. I've got Jennifer Wirtz and Danielle Ryan attending virtually today. So Jennifer is the EQIP program manager, Danielle is the CSP program manager,
And then we've got David and Matt here in person.
All right, okay. Great, all right, thank you. There was a little bit of chatter in the chatter about not being able to open the PDF with the handout in it. So we will include that when we send this out to everyone, just so everyone will get that attached to their email after the meeting. So, okay, otherwise Shayla and Randy are working on it, thank you. So, and I just want to support what Val was saying about the local work groups. So it's the people who understand what's in those local communities that know what they need best. And that's what we're all here for, is once those local work groups identify the priorities of the issues, the resource concerns that they want to work on, then that helps us to determine how to, what sort of services are needed in those communities, and how do we allocate those services out to the different parts of the state. And then it helps people come together for maybe RCPP proposals, right, Matt? So that's where it all begins, at the grassroots. So thank you. As far as the partnerships and the agreements update, I'm going to be a little on the short side. I don't have a handout, but I do want to give a little bit of background about what's happened in South Dakota. So we've had some really great partnerships for several decades with many organizations. And then more recently in 2017, our budget was a little larger, and we were able to enter into some cooperative agreements or contribution agreements that allowed us to really, hit the ground running with some targeted areas. So that was really fun. And we've established some really great partnerships with some additional groups around the state. But I want to just take a time, we don't have I don't have any announcements now. I have no information now about our ability to enter into agreements this year. And it is getting late in the fiscal year. However, what I really want to do is go back to what Tony was talking about, the conservation technical assistance, and emphasize, like with your membership, Joanna, with the other membership, Glenn, and any of those folks online, that if you've got members that have questions about something or wanted just more information, that's what we're here for, because the science is the foundation of what we do, helping people understand soils and waters and the plants and the animals, how that all integrates into making a healthier, more viable operation. So whether it's a shop talk, or maybe it's individual producers, we're more than happy to make time to come to your event or come out and speak or focus on, we could do a field day, and those are really fun. So we're happy to do that. Just please reach out to me or to your local field office and we can get something set up. So we just want to help you with that side. Because the whole goal, we're here to serve you and the producers of South Dakota. And that's what we want to do, is help keep farmers farming. That's our goal. So anything we can do to help people on their journey will be great. On the grants and agreements side of things, the agreements division did lose staff, so they're short-staffed now. One of the things that I've been encouraging our agreement holders to do is to, you can submit, if you're having issue with the Easy Fed grants, as you're with it, uploading any sort of reports or claims, you can attach them to an email, and I'm going to ask Shayla to please drop that in the chat too, and we'll include that when we send out the meeting minutes or the notes. And but there is an email address that the division has that can receive reports and claims. So let's say you have a computer malfunction and there's an issue. Don't stress. There's a workaround through that email address. And then we have established a shared mailbox at the state office here in NRCS South Dakota for our agreements, and that one is it's a shared mailbox for agreements. And we're asking you, if you have a report, to please, if you're working through Easy Feds, to please also send a courtesy copy of that email to us at that agreements mailbox, and also to your primary program contact. And that way we can help keep tabs on, yes, it got submitted, and is there, where is it in the processing for handling? So that'll help us too. Okay. any questions for me on grants or agreements or partnerships? Thank you so much. Yes.
But just a quick plug, how important that those technical assistance dollars that you put out there. I mean, South Dakota Land Trust is a perfect example of an entity that needed a little kickstart and get going. I tell you, the contribution agreement that NRCS provided early on in getting us up and running was huge on getting us to the point that we're at right now. So just to make sure you know that, and if you could use that as an example to help justify some future funding, I mean, we'd be gladly, help with that. But yeah, NIFWF got us going, contribution agreement got us there, and a lot of things have contributed to get us where we are today. But that contribution agreement was a huge part. That was allocated to the Association of Conservation Districts.
Thank you, and thank you for recognizing that. And that has been really fun to see the growth in our partnership and how strong those have helped. So we've got a good partnership in South Dakota with many organizations. Thank you. Okay. With this, we are going to move into a round robin of updates from organizations. And I believe that South Dakota Soybean may have some things. And then I think Lisa Kunza on South Dakota School of Mines. I see Angela Ehlert has her hand up, so we'll move into updates that way. So we'll just let you have the floor.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonna Ringkop from South Dakota Soybean. Just a few updates. So we've been preparing for our next fiscal year, wrapping up our current one. Kind of in the same boat as a lot of people. We know that our dollars are going to be down for FY26, so our board members had to look pretty crucially at everything and during our budgeting. We still haven't finalized budget yet, but we did finalize research, and we're excited about the research projects that we do have lined up for the next fiscal year. We are doing a See for Yourself to Mexico in July, giving people the opportunity to see what soybean exports look like down in Mexico, and changing it up from going to the Pacific Northwest like we have the last couple years. Then for more local things, we have our Huron Shop Talk organized for July 9th and one in Falkton July 10th. And then we will be doing our golf tournament on July 21st in Brandon. And then we also just opened up yield contest and are starting to accept signups for yield contest. It's just an opportunity for producers to showcase their soybean yields. We have it broken up into different categories based off of maturity groups and management practices. And we award prizes to the top 3 in each category that we have it broken up into. And then we showcase them at a banquet in December connected to our Ag Outlook meeting. Other than that, not a lot else is going on with soybean. We're just getting busy for the summer.
Getting planting, right?
Yeah.
This is the season. Great. Okay. Lisa Kunza, did you have some comments that you'd like to share with the group?
Sure. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just thank you for the opportunity to share a quick update on some of the stuff that we are doing. First of all, I'm not sure that everybody is aware of us. So I am the director of the Center for Sustainable Solutions at School of Mines, and a couple of the people that are working for me are also on the call, Pat Kozak and Jennifer Walker. We're coming to the end of a CCG agreement, and we have been working on developing a toolkit to help support ranchers out here in western South Dakota. And we are intending to name the toolkit after Mitch Faulkner, because his involvement and contributions pulling all of us together to think about this started 4 or 5 years ago. And so his legacy will continue through, and we will do our best to to make sure to address all of the things that we learned from him through time. We are excited about the partnership that we have created with many of the producers in the region through the opportunity to extend out and work with them. And I feel like all of that is only possible because of the agreements with NRCS. So I guess from my perspective, we are going to be hosting folks from NRCS at the later this summer to highlight some of the results of the toolkit work. But that agreement is winding down, and we will be finished with that. But definitely look forward to the opportunities to work together more with others across the state in the future as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. It has been a pleasure working with you too. And I know the folks out in Western South Dakota have commented many times about your work there. So thank you. And I really do. When your proposal came in a few years ago, I was really excited to see that toolkit. So we'll be ready for the final reports. So thank you. All right. Another great partnership, right? Okay, then we have South Dakota Association of Conservation Districts with Angela Ehlers.
Good morning. Just a couple items to update you on. For those that weren't aware of it, there was a Senate Ag Committee meeting yesterday on conservation in the Farm Bill as part of the whole day's discussion on Farm Bill. And it was a really good hour and a half to hour 45 minutes of testimony, both between the senators and 5 participants. If you didn't get a chance to listen or see that, I encourage you to do so because there was some interesting proposals put out, as well as some good conversation. We continue to work on the Dakota Conservation Network, and we are continuing to add features to it so that we can make it as most inclusive as possible. We are looking for opportunities to expand the outreach effort in both the Dakota Conservation District and the non-operating landowner projects. If you have some events coming up where you might have a booth that we could possibly be at, we do have some dollars to pay for those. Would you please let us know, because we'd like to be able to get that information out to producers, support partnerships, support businesses, etc., or anybody that's interested in learning about conservation. The final item is it's time again for us to be working on collecting natural resource concerns through our local work groups. We do about 1/3 of the districts each year on that. And so we'll be working on that process. We are revising it this year, and we'll be getting that out within the next month. So thank you.
Great, good news, goodness. Okay, would there be any other partners online that would like to speak? Bruce, I see your hand up. Please be recognized.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I just want to give a little update on the RCPP project that Morlock mentioned earlier. Received great news here about 2 weeks ago on RCPP 3036, or what we're calling the Working Grasslands Partnership. We had quite a few projects in the hopper hoping to happen this spring. Some of those deferred into the fall with the uncertainty there, but we did manage to get some projects going this spring, and folks are getting some grass seed in the ground here. Hopefully ahead of a week-long rain here in front of us here to get that seed going. But it's been going great. So far we have about 34 signed landowner agreements across South Dakota, working with our partners, NRCS, Partners for Wildlife, Game Fish and Parks, Audubon Great Plains, Soil Health Coalition, and Grassland Coalition. Those agreements obligate about $2.4 million going to our South Dakota cooperators. And those agreements are going to plant approximately 8,775 acres of marginal cropland back into grass. So we're seeing some really good projects across the state that are putting some land back in the grass for livestock forage and wildlife habitat. So we're really satisfied with both the quality of projects we're seeing and how many of that, and getting a lot more calls from cooperators here, and anticipate lots of good things here over the next couple of years. So real big thanks to Matt Morlock and Val DePraz for helping us kind of navigate the weirdness there for a couple of months with their funding. But we came out of the gate hitting the ground running, and things are looking pretty good. So
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else online? Okay. My phone came up with a chat. Okay, but it doesn't say whose name it is. Please just turn your camera on or off mic and then speak your chat, please. Or maybe Shaylee or something. You can close it. There we go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sushant, and I'm an assistant professor at South Dakota State University. Just wanted to share, since we talked a little bit about the drainage also in the meeting, there will be a tri-state drainage research forum. We say tri-state because Iowa, Minnesota, and South Dakota usually have it every single year. This will be our 24th year to have this research forum, and South Dakota is fortunate enough to host this year after roughly around 10 years. My predecessor, Chris Hay, if some of you know him in the room, he hosted the last one, and we are finalizing the program. There will be great speakers. We will learn a lot about drainage as a system rather than just drainage as a single practice. So we will talk about how drainage can help mitigating the droughts and controlling floods as a storage, drainage water recycling, drainage water to be reused as for the irrigation purposes. A lot of things are going to happen, and if there are folks in the room on the call who would be interested in participating in any form, please reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the chat, and I'm looking forward for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry my phone didn't recognize you, so when I came up, but thank you.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more in the chat, anyone here have any more updates or comments before we go to a closing? And double check, please, with the chat. Okay, it's just those. All right. Okay, very good. Well, as I said before, the next State Technical Committee Advisory Committee will be held September 10th, and location is to be determined. So we'll be sure to get the meeting notification out right away. And it is being sent from our shared mailbox that has the words shared, like SM, like FPAC partnerships in it. So that way we have more access to it and can help manage it a little bit better. So it's sent from that email address. But if someone would like to receive something by direct email or by US mail, please let us know, and my staff will make sure that you're on the list. So very good. All right, thanks. We look forward to subcommittee work and see you in September. Tony, would you have any comments for closing?
Sure. So just a couple of items I just wanted to hit on one last time. So Colette mentioned it. NRCS is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and our mission is to make sure that farmers continue farming. That is what our mission is. We have a lot of flexibility within our programs, and again, I mentioned NRCS is a locally led agency. So the idea behind this is we need feedback. We need to hear from you. We need to hear from our producers. We need to hear from our commodity groups. We need to hear from our wildlife groups. We need to hear feedback on how this agency can continue to support the farmers and ranchers and forestry producers of South Dakota. If you have feedback, if you have ideas, we want to hear it. And you don't have to save it for this session. This is an appropriate place to talk about it, but it doesn't have to be just here. We're going to have subcommittees set up. I'm always available. You have local contacts with Colette and others across the state that you can always provide feedback to. Matt had mentioned the flexibility with the RCPP program. We have a lot of flexibility with how we can help our producers across the state. But we need the ideas. And even if it's something that potentially legally we can't do, we still want to hear about it to see if there is some flexibility that maybe we can find. So just because you think an idea might be off the wall, you should bring it up, because we might be able to find a way to make it happen. I can't promise we'll do everything, but bring it to our attention so we can try. There's really no harm in asking to see if the agency can help with something, because that's really what we're set up to do. And again, we're voluntary and we're non-regulatory. So come talk to us, see if there's some flexibility, see if there's something that we might be able to help with. And as we get closer to having these conversations, and we'll have a meeting here to discuss prioritization, we might be able to actually do something that maybe we haven't done before. So bring the ideas and continue to bring feedback to us on how we can continue to help service our producers and keep farmers farming across South Dakota. So again, thank you so much for your participation and being here. And we are going to see some changes as we move forward, but we're going to be able to get through those. But still continue to communicate, continue to reach out. And just again, I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Tony. And with that, our meeting will be closed. Safe travels to you in the room, and thank you online for who joined us.